All right, let's talk about 2025. What a wild ride. It was a year that honestly felt like it had a split personality. You had these incredible highs and these terrifying lows, a lot of times happening all at once.
On one hand, you had these huge collective moments that brought almost everyone together. We're talking about those spectacular wins and pop culture phenomena that just took over the conversation. But, and this is a big but, on the flip side, it felt like the entire world was just holding its breath. You know, these old tensions that had been simmering for years, they finally started to boil over, pushing major world powers into some really dangerous corners. And at the very same time, we were literally reaching for the stars. Science and tech were just exploding. We saw these massive leaps forward that were completely redefining what we thought was possible. And all of that forward momentum, all that progress, was mirrored by these incredibly intense political fights right here at home. I mean, the future of the country felt like it was genuinely on the line. So, how do all these pieces fit together? Let's get into it. Okay, so first up, let's talk about the spectacle. The big, flashy moments that had everyone glued to their screens. The year really kicked off with what you could call a dynasty killer. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't just squeak by the Kansas City Chiefs. No, they absolutely dominated them, 40-22. Jalen Hurts was a machine. He easily took home the MVP. But the real story? That Eagles defense completely shut down a team that was on the verge of a historic three-peat. Just incredible. And then you had a moment where the sports and music worlds didn't just collide, they merged. Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got engaged, and they announced it with this perfect, hilarious caption that just broke the internet. Over 37 million likes. I mean, it became one of those moments that defined the entire year. Now look at this number, 300 million. That's not a budget, that's not a box office total, that is the number of views for a film called K-pop Demon Hunters. It was this animated fantasy that basically came out of nowhere to become the single most watched movie on Netflix ever, a total viral sensation. And if that wasn't enough, we had a truly historic moment out of the Vatican. The world met Pope Leo XIV, who, get this, turned out to be a 69-year-old cardinal from Chicago named Robert Francis Prevost, a diehard White Sox fan who loves deep dish pizza. He became the very first American to ever lead the Catholic Church. Just amazing. All right, so while pop culture was giving us all that to talk about, science and technology were making some unbelievable leaps into the future. So, how do you make a jetliner more efficient? Well, Japan Airlines looked to the ocean for the answer. They started coating their Boeing 787s with this material that actually mimics shark skin. It has these microscopic grooves called riblets that help the air flow more smoothly over the plane, cutting way down on turbulence and drag. And the results are just a massive win all around. The plane with the riblet coating is way quieter, it's more fuel efficient, and it has lower emissions. A huge, huge improvement. And not from some crazy new engine, but just from changing the texture of the plane's skin. It's genius. And believe me, the breakthroughs did not stop there. 2025 was a landmark year for aerospace. We saw the very first commercial soft landing on the moon. We saw a new engine that promised to get you from LA to Tokyo in under 2 hours. And we saw the launch of the most ambitious, detailed mission to Mercury ever attempted. But you know, with all this tech, especially AI, moving so incredibly fast, there was also a sense of real urgency, a feeling that we needed to get a handle on it. So nations actually came together and signed the first ever legally binding treaty on artificial intelligence. The whole point, as one expert put it, was to set up some global guardrails to make sure AI develops in a way that's safe for all of us. But here's the contrast again. All that amazing progress was happening right alongside a much darker, much more tense reality. Back here on Earth, 2025 was the year a lot of global tensions finally hit a breaking point. The year was really defined by two huge flashpoints. First, in June, the U.S. launched direct military strikes against Iran's key nuclear facilities. Then, just a few months later in October, Venezuela's president, feeling the pressure, made a direct appeal to Russia for military help, dragging two superpowers deeper into that conflict. And let's be clear, this was not a warning shot. The U.S. targeted Iran's most critical, most heavily fortified nuclear sites. Hitting these specific locations was a massive escalation, aimed right at the heart of Iran's nuclear program. So the big question was, would Russia actually step in to help Venezuela? Well, most experts were pretty skeptical. As the Atlantic Council pointed out, Russia's credibility as an ally was basically shot. They were so bogged down in Ukraine that they'd already let their ally in Syria completely collapse. The warning to Venezuela was pretty clear. Don't count on Putin's promises. Now, while all of this was playing out on the world stage, there were some fierce battles being fought right here at home that were totally reshaping the political landscape in the U.S. And Virginia was the epicenter. I mean, it was a political earthquake. Democrats didn't just win the governor's race, they absolutely stormed the House of Delegates. They flipped a mind-boggling 13 seats to lock in a near supermajority. It was a complete shift in the state's balance of power. And this wasn't just a fluke in Virginia. We saw this same pattern everywhere. From holding on to power in New Jersey to defending a critical Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin, and even flipping a deep red district in Pennsylvania, the 2025 elections showed a clear trend of Democrats doing much better than anyone expected. Okay, so what's the takeaway here? When you step back and you look at everything that happened in 2025, what's the story it's telling us? Well, in the end, 2025 was basically a giant mirror. It showed us our own duality, right? Our incredible capacity to work together and achieve brilliant things, and our terrible tendency toward division and conflict. We were reaching for the moon with one hand and drawing battle lines on the ground with the other. Now, it's really important to remember that this whole picture of 2025 was based on forecasts and trends. It was a story of what could be. And that leaves us with one last really big question. If that was a potential future, what story are we writing right now in our own reality?